It's Cardboard Time, episode number 50. It's finally here. I am your host, Arwen Kathke, and joining me are some very familiar voices from the past. We have Justin.
Familiar? Wow. Okay. For someone who's barely been on in the past year, familiar is a nice word to hear.
People that listened all the way back at episode 1 would know who you are. And
that's right.
You know, some other ones.
A few others. Yeah.
Maybe, what's the name of some of them other ones?
What's some of them other, like episode 2?
3?
Yeah. So, geez, how long have I been gone? Like, I think I've been on one episode since my baby's been born, which is well over a year now. So
I think that was the last anniversary episode. It was the 1 year anniversary.
Thanks for reminding me, because I don't have memory of hardly anything over the last year. So, you know, also don't get to play any games anymore. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to be talking about while we're here tonight. But, you know,
we'll figure that out.
Yeah, we will or we won't.
Yeah, exactly. Jamie is here with us. Hello, Jamie.
Hi there. How's it going?
Oh,
I'm probably a little bit more of a familiar voice at the very least.
Yeah, you've been on some very recent episodes, so
I've been on a handful, a couple.
Yeah. So in some ways, you're all voices of Cardboard Time past, and you are now voices of the present, and hopefully of the future as well. Speaking of other voices that you all know, Craig is here with us as well. We're excited to have him. Craig, how you doing?
Good, Arwen. How are you?
Good. It's good to have you back.
Yeah, it's nice to be here. I think this is my third appearance, so Jamie said a couple. I think I literally can say a couple. It's been 2 in the past.
Well, it's been too few, and we need to have you on more, because you always bring some really good knowledge. I'm excited about the game that you're going to be talking about today. You know, I'm just so thrilled to have you all here with me, and you were all at my 50th episode celebration that happened. That was such a cool party. I want to talk about it in a little bit. But before we get to that, just wanted to give the listeners a couple of notes here. For this episode, the front end is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit more uncut. I have been sick the past few days, and when I say sick, I mean very sick. We were supposed to originally record this the Friday before the release, and we were supposed to do it in person. Unfortunately, that wasn't able to happen with how my health situation was. So, you know, everybody agreed to come online Sunday night, and we're doing this live. So we're not going to be doing much editing since we're so close to release. On the back half of this episode,
you've got your fingers crossed for that.
Yeah,
and see, I'm going to ruin it for you right now.
We'll see. I'll probably leave that in because I'm cheeky.
Because
like
you don't have time.
Do that. Yeah, exactly. I literally don't have time. On the back half of this episode, we have a very exciting interview with the designer of Creature Comforts, the upcoming Maple Valley by KTBG, and much more. Roberta Taylor joined me for a sit-down that I had so much fun recording. I can't wait for you all to hear it. Some great topics that we talked about on the back half of this episode. So action-packed or, you know, whatever packed, fun packed.
Putting those promises up front here.
It's just packed.
It's packed.
It's just packed with stuff, and hopefully you all like it. So, speaking of packed with things, my shelf of shame is packed with games I haven't played. It is down by 2, is at 153. One new acquisition, Fleet the Dice game that Matt and Lori gifted me at my birthday / 50th episode celebration. I'm going to butcher the name of that event. That was
just 50th, just 50th episode, not 50th birthday. Let's bring that up again.
I thought that was your 50th birthday. That's what the balloon said.
That's what the balloon said. Oh my god. Um, I'll explain this now. So at this event that we had at Our Shape Brewing, which a fantastic establishment. Again, if you're ever in Akron, go down to Our Shape downtown. They're wonderful, good people, great beer, good stuff.
The space is huge. It's wild.
It really is. It's massive. They have like 2 floors. There's like brewing down below, and then there's a whole seating area up top that you can look down on the brewing area. And then they have a party room. It is a massive establishment. I believe it is in an old like Firestone or Cooper or something.
What's on the name of that tower? What's the name of that tower they got there? I think it's a Goodrich Tower.
Goodrich.
Yeah.
That's what it was. What's the name of some of them other tire companies? But as you walked in, you basically came in, and there are 2 giant balloons that said 50. And happy birthday was up there too. So everybody was like, I don't think Arwen's 50. I mean,
This looks pretty good for 50.
She looks pretty good for 50. So it was a joint 50th episode, and my birthday, which I am not 50. I am younger than 50. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but younger than 50. Celebration. So we will talk about that in a minute. But getting back to the Shelf of Shame, Fleet the Dice game. I not only acquired it, again, our great friends Matt and Lori gave me that as part of the celebration as a birthday gift, and I have played a lot of that. I look forward to talking about it on a future episode because I really want to get into a deep dive. Between that and Three Sisters, I think it begs a comparison between the two. Which is better, what you like more, and I've got some thoughts on that. I also got to play a full game of Ready, Set, Bet, and I will talk about that in a minute. I am going to talk about that on this episode. Excited for that one. And then Hamsters versus Hippos, I got to the table. Fun little, game, more weighted towards the lighter side of things, so kids can play it, families can play it. Good family weight game with some good pressure luck in there. So
how long am I going to have to wait to play that one in this family setting?
Probably not long. I can bring that over and see how you like it, because I think that would be a good one for you to potentially pick up for a couple years from now.
Oh, awesome. I hear press your luck and I get excited. So
I know you do. I know.
If the child situation has you down, just have a couple more, and then you can just really, really get out of gaming. It'll be fantastic. 1 was good. 3,
Entirely.
that just kind of set it over the edge on my end.
So that wall of games behind you is just like laminated behind glass right now, right? Untouched.
Yeah, I have about 80% Shelf of Shame at this point. I just like to still buy stuff even though I hardly play.
Oh, I'm with you. You don't want to see my Legos of Shame dungeon basement I got going on right now.
We should share some pics because I have that same problem as well.
Awesome.
And I think
Let's
all
start
have
talking about Legos later.
We all have a unique pile of things that we don't want to talk about, and mine happens to be gray plastic minis.
But we are going to talk about them here in this venue.
Exactly. That's what this is made for.
This is like a support group.
Yeah, exactly. It's beautiful. So I did want to talk about the celebration. It was so wonderful. It was an actually pretty packed room. Really awesome, the amount of good friends I got to see, including people from the past. I mean, everybody that was on this episode was there. In addition, like my friend Jay from college came in all the way in from Rochester, drove in his first week back from China. He has been in China for probably 10 years at this point. finally came back. He was back a week and decided to come to Akron to celebrate with me. And I was like, you've got a wife and a kid, maybe get them settled. No, just come to Akron and see me. So it was so cool to see him. So many people that, came and, we got to play games and hang out and talk to. Unfortunately, didn't get to spend nearly enough time with all of them. But, hoping that changes as the months kind of, wind on and temperatures kind of cool down a little bit. Hoping that I can set up some time with some people and get back together with them. So
winter is good indoor seclusion time for gaming. That's what you're saying. It's really our season. Is that it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Winter's just good for indoor kids in general. So
yeah, I always have been a fan of winter.
And not only that, but we're not as busy with conventions. We do have PAX Unplugged coming up, but that's pretty much it. So the summer season where we've got Origins and Gen Con and everything going on there, and everybody is out doing things in public. Now they're like, well, I'm cooped up. I'm like, I got your fix. We're good. I can take care of this situation. This is fine. But one game that I did play while I was there. Oh, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank my girlfriend, Allie, and Jamie for helping set this up. It was such a cool time, and really, really a very special event. And who knows what 100 holds in store, but Jamie has her hand up.
I do want to add
100.
100 years old.
100,
I do want to add that for every person that was there were countless people that sent their best wishes and wanted to send gifts and all this other stuff. So if the completely packed brewery room was not enough of an ego boost, Arwen, I will be the first and the only to report, because I invited all the industry people that was not even everyone. So not that it's surprising, but yeah, there's a lot of people who wanted to be there that couldn't be there.
It's really crazy. I mean, the party was during the lead up to Essen, and then I think Shucks was like that weekend as well. So I know that some people were kind of busy during that, but it's crazy how many people that I consider friends that we've kind of made in this industry, and it's really cool that they sent their well wishes, and I did get some of them in the mail. One in particular that I was working on today was Court from Thames and Cosmos. She is amazing and sent a nice little care package for me, so Aww. It was very sweet, very sweet. So yeah, Ready, Set, Bet was one of the games I played there that I wanted to talk about. This one I got a while ago from AEG, and I've been wanting to try this out. And it's not a game that I've really had an itch to play with just a very small group. This is one that you need a larger group for. This is essentially a horse racing betting game. Where you are going to have one person that runs the game, essentially, although there is an app that's out for development right now. I think it's going to be released fairly soon. So if you don't want to have one person running the horses, you can just, have the app do it. But one person's running these horses, they're rolling dice, and they are moving these horses forward. What's interesting is with the probability of the horses, your lesser rolled numbers like your 2s, your 3s, your 11s, and 12s, if you get those, the horse that's associated with those actually has a little bonus if you roll it a second time in a row. So you get this bonus movement. So it helps flatten that curve out just a little bit, which makes things a little bit more exciting. So you basically have one person doing this, and then everybody else is going to have a set of chips that they are going to use to bet. And all of these different betting positions based on whether the horse is going to finish in first, second, and third are open. And as the person's rolling, everybody is placing bets real time out on this field. There's exotic bets that you can kind of go in and get some big points on. There's also these very unique betting opportunities up top as well that kind of cycle in and out. So basically, you're betting. At one point, once the horses cross this red line, the betting closes until the race finishes. Everything pays out. And then you basically go for 4 rounds, and whoever has the most points at the end wins. The only thing to add to that is there's these additional bonus cards that give you a unique ability that you get one of those at the end of every race, except the 4th one, obviously, because that's the end of the game. So you get a few of these little powers that kind of help you out with, future rounds and give you a little bit of a driving strategy as well. So this was the first game that I've played that I think was as much fun to facilitate as it was to play. I was rolling the dice, and I had already gotten to, play a good amount of rounds where I was betting, and I really wanted to facilitate the game to see if it was as much fun as I thought it was going to be. And it definitely was. It was such a cool game to run. Really love that. So I would highly recommend this for people. I will say that there is one caveat to that I have. There is a bonus card that I talked about, this red line, that once the horses cross that, you can't bet anymore. There is a card that you can get that gives you the power to bet after those horses cross that red line. And I think that that's a little bit overpowered, if not very overpowered. So I may take this out of the game and just kind of put it under the insert and forget about it. And I think that way it's going to be a much friendlier game and a much more balanced game. This is going to be tough to determine whether I like this or Green Team Wins as my party game of the year. I love Green Team. Jamie and I have been talking about that since PAX U of last year. And this one could potentially top it for my party game of the year.
I've heard nothing but good things about this game, and like every opportunity or every situation that's arisen in which I can play it, I'm like preoccupied by something, and it makes me so sad every time, because I'm like, I'm just desperately wanting to play this game. I know PAX will be where I first play it, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to bring it. I'm scheduled to go down to Kim's Nerdapalooza next weekend, and I am probably going to bring it down there because it seems like the kind of environment that, I'd like to get this out with. So we'll see if that hits the table then.
We've had a handful of good racing betting games over the last few years, so if this beats out those, I'm
yeah.
That's
so
I gotta see.
What are you thinking about?
What's that?
I know Justin's probably thinking about Unicorn Fever.
Well, I was bringing that up, and then I'm thinking is Downforce the other one? I think is that the right one? Yeah, I get my game names mixed up. I haven't played games for some time. The games were fun back when I could play them. Downforce had Downforce had the betting in it too, right? Yeah, that was those were both very unique betting racing games.
I have played Unicorn Fever this year, and that one is quite fun.
It's a trip. Yep,
it is. Craig, has this been on your radar at all? Have you seen this?
I just at the party, so I unfortunately
didn't have the opportunity to jump in the game. But it was one of those where, there's a big crowd. It was a little bit loud, lots of people standing around. So I think this was definitely drawing the attention. So I'm hoping I can get a chance there. But it definitely looked fun.
I'll say that it's really, you brought up a good point, and it's really that kind of game that elicits that emotion. And I haven't seen a game really do that in quite a while, where everybody's standing up and everybody's yelling and, hey, come on, 7, come on. And every single game that we've played of this, and every single game that I've seen played of this, you have people just yelling at it, and it's so much fun. And it's getting everybody at the table, and it's getting everybody involved, and I really love that aspect of it.
That sounds like, if you want me to go really far back, that sounds like the game that Tweed always wanted to pull together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was definitely something. I am very glad that I got this one, and I think that this one's going to be, if you're looking for that party game, if you're looking for something that I would say it's maybe more of an adult, audience. I think kids could play it, but there's some parents that don't want to introduce their kids to, to gambling that early.
You got to teach them while they're young.
I was going to bring up that, like, at least between Arwen and I, we are not gamblers. Like, do not enjoy it. Don't see the point. But man, we love gaming, and those games that bring that just gambling addiction feel into it without exchanging money. Somehow they really hit that spot, and they're a blast.
I really vibe with that because I'm a big fan of push your luck games. Mostly because I'm well known in my local group for having like just absurd luck, except for when it really counts. So like that sort of thing is like, oh my god, I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Yeah, it was a fantastic one, and looking forward to sharing that with more people. So, Justin, I'm going to go over to you next. We got a chance to sit down recently, and we got to play a game that Jamie has also played in Decorum. And I wanted to know what your thoughts were on it, because it's a game that I'm kind of mixed on, depending on the crowd that I'm with.
Well, okay. I was going to say mixed. The way you sell it didn't sound like you were mixed on it to me. Hold on. I got to ask, like, are we going to do like beer of the week here?
Oh, do you have one for us?
Well, of course I do. Although this one isn't going to be much to talk about, but I'm almost done with it now. While we were getting audio issues figured out, you know how that goes. So I brought back, like, what's 8 times 2? 16 beers from Canada when I had a work trip up there recently. This one is Whiteout from Sleeping Giant. It's a hazy IPA, but it's I gotta admit, it's a little bit soft. So I could have come prepared with a better beer, but I don't remember what the others I've had are that were mostly fantastic, by the way. This can is also like coated in Teflon and very slippery. I don't understand it.
I could have come here with a better beer, but you chose some mediocre beer for this show.
Yeah, let's start out with the mediocre. So, like, but it's just me. We didn't get beers this week for.
To be honest, you're on camera, and we can all see each other. And from this angle, it kind of looked like you were holding a PBR. So I was like, all right, yeah, like I was ready for that energy. Like coming in here with beer of the week is going to be PBR. Y'all may have heard of it before.
Have you never had this before? It's fantastic. It's not good. It's not drinkable. But that's what I like about it.
That's what I like about it. It's taste.
I feel like I'm in the same boat as Justin. I'm sitting here, not a bad beer, but with a Warsteiner Oktoberfest. I love my fall seasonals, but if I was prepared for this, I was on your recommendation, Arwen, after Origins, and the Hoof-Hearted. I stopped there a couple weeks ago when I was in Columbus and brought a bunch back, and they are fantastic. There's a couple IPAs drinking from them recently. Had a... Man, I wish I could remember what it was called, $120 nachos or something like that. It was a 12% triple IPA. It was fantastic. But yeah, Hoof-Hearted. And it's great when you can get your, 75-year-old parents to read the label and then try to figure that one out.
Did you actually get to go to the brewery, or did you just pick the beer up?
I just picked it up. I had the kids, so we were down there going to the zoo in Kosai, and I actually just ordered some online through their web portal, and just had my wife literally drop me off at the corner, and I ran in and picked them up, and she drove around the block, and I jumped back in the van. We were on our way home.
That sounds like a great deal.
It seems kind of modus operandi for that place, like all sorts of sketchy deals and stuff. That you have to go there at some point. I would say probably next year we'll probably go with Tim anyways. And if you're down at Origins with us and you're there while we're down there having beers with Tim, you got to come with us, because this place is ridiculous. The whole vibe about it is absolutely wild. I loved it. The whole Patrick Swayze night when Jamie and I were there too. Like I will never forget that. And Tim knows his places. Like, he hasn't missed with us yet, and this was a core memory for me, because it's just such a wacky place. I love it. I absolutely love it.
For the free plug, go ahead, Craig.
Picking up my beers, the hostess was standing there eating some wings, and judging from the smell, they were probably some sort of Asian theme, but they smelled ridiculous. And I was honestly considering just asking for a table and waiting to see how long my wife would circle before she'd start texting me. So yeah, I definitely want to go back there.
Well, I thought you were going to say you made the wiser choice.
I thought you were going to say you were going to ask her for a taste.
That might have, I don't know. Who knows how that would have worked out?
Yeah.
If I recall, they were smoked wings. Mm-hmm. They're very good.
They're so good.
All right, I was going to help for the free plug. It's Hoof Hearted. For those of you trying to Google it.
Yeah, don't type in WHOFARTED, because they'll get you some.
You'll get all sorts of different things.
Yeah, not what you want.
Well, let's not be hasty. We don't know what our listeners want.
That's very true. That's
true.
Very true. All right,
and we can also help them with some of those things too.
Yes, we can.
Back to Decorum. Where were we?
Let's talk about Decorum. So, Justin, I want to know what your thoughts were on it.
Okay, so I have to think back. Memory's so fuzzy here. It was only a few weeks ago. Actually, I think that was before your party, so it was more than a few weeks ago. But, so I remember you selling this game to me multiple times. Okay, I got to play this. And we finally sat down. You pull out the components. You start reading the rules, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a piece of cake, right? Like this is gonna be easy. You just gotta match. You just got to match rooms without telling each other exactly what you want. That's basically the rules. You got to get the colors and the styles just right. And yeah, big whoop, No. Oh, man. Once we started playing, I'm like, oh, now I see where the game is. This is a little tricky. Now, we did pretty well, because I think we're on the same wavelength when it comes to engineering our way through these games, which probably takes some of the fun out of it. And also, we didn't have to get at each other's throats. But had we played, what did we play? Only 3 scenarios. So there's 3 intro.
I think we wound up playing 4.
Oh, really?
Jamie.
Maybe.
Because Jamie and I had played 3.
Oh, okay.
And we did really good on the first 2. And then we really got stuck on the 3rd. And the 2 of us played the first 3 really well, and
then that last one got sticky.
The last one got real sticky.
Oh yeah, I could see where we could have lost that one pretty easily had we gotten stuck in a loop. Yeah, you gotta not be afraid to It seems counterintuitive, but yeah, you just put the same thing back in the same place that somebody just took it out. No, this lamp goes here. Stop it. or I'm going to make you repaint this whole damn house if that lamp doesn't stay there. But I can't say that because I'm passive aggressive, and this is how we're going to do this. And that's what the game is about, right? I mean,
it really makes you have to act passive aggressive, even if you're not a passive aggressive person.
Exactly.
It's the weirdest thing in the world, and like, it feels so strange to do it. Like Arwen and I, when we talked about this before, we agreed, and I still 100%, subscribe to this logic. Like, you almost have to do kind of like a mental check-in before you play this game. It's kind of like Fog of Love. Like, you really have to like make sure you are in a good spot before you play this with somebody, because it can really cause some trouble.
So that's what I was wondering. I don't know how many scenarios Arwen and I would have to play before we got upset at each other. We weren't quite there yet. It would have had to have been at least a couple more. But I think that's where the fun kind of is going to be. But what's like the bandwidth on like it's too dull because we're too dull, or no, this is getting heated and fists are going to be flying because we just get too hot over games. I don't know how wide that band is that it's like safe but fun.
Yeah, we kind of need to know when to shut it down, and I think where we left off, we might have been able to do like one or two more, and that would have been it. I think where Jamie and I got, I think that was pretty much it. We were very passive aggressive at each other at that point, 'cause I was like picking up these tiles and no, don't do this again.
I've got the significant other to test this with. I think this is a good idea for a future live stream if we could ever make that happen.
I'd love to see that, because it is 4 players, so all of us could play.
So and that's that's what I wanted to go back to, like our early pre cardboard time, like live stream and 24-hour game playthroughs for charity.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Okay. All right, we'll bring that up a little later.
We are going to talk about that in a minute.
Is there an opportunity for like real decorum, like set it up in your house and do it for real?
Ooh, and start throwing lamps around.
So that would be a very interesting thing for Floodgate to get on, is go in and just buy like a beater house and just set up real life decorum where they could just go and buy property that is needing repair and just go in and set this up. And this is how you
paint everything with bright primary colors.
You got to think bigger than that. I mean, they have the Everdell tree at cons. They have the giant galaxy trucker. Why not just go all in and have a 4-room decorum live experience?
Oh, I
just
like
set up
that.
some
Almost like an
cubicles.
escape room.
Yeah, exactly.
And it'd be far more dangerous than an escape room.
Yeah. It's
Copyright
probably
Cardboard
because
Time
they
2022.
exactly. Floodgate, listen, just give me a copy of the rest of your games that you produce, and we'll call it good.
We'll go hit the thrift stores. We'll get a bunch of lamps and paintings. We'll spray paint them bright colors. We'll put them up. And then after the first time around and people break everything, we'll learn that we got to buy plastic props instead of ceramics and glass. But, it's part of the learning curve.
We need to get this group together more, is what I'm hearing, because this is a good idea.
You should probably edit this out so we can copyright it and make our own thing, right?
There's a little think tank.
Yeah. These free ideas floating out there. These free, terrible ideas with tons of liability around them. Somebody else take this one from us.
Please, don't leave it in our hands.
No.
So, Craig, you played Foundations of Rome recently, and it's one that Jamie and I were able to see at Gen Con, see a bunch of people play. I was jealous because I would like to play it at some point. What were your thoughts on this? Can you give us a little bit of information and what you thought about it?
Yeah, I came into this one cold, so I was vaguely aware through some Facebook groups, just seeing pictures of it, that it was kind of the new hotness, and my friend Mitch, who always has all the new hotness stuff, came over and just plunk. This thing is like After the Empire and Sleeping Gods, like stacked on top of each other, one box. It's giant, and I'm like, what the heck is this?
I was gonna ask if he had or if whoever you played with had the minis, but you just answered that question with
yes.
with the huge box.
But that's the first impression of the game is I'm looking at this thing like, man, this is just huge. What's this thing going to be? But it was really well done. So I'll talk about the game first and then get back to the production. But it's a city building game. I mean, so the main arc of the game here is you're trying to acquire land in the city of Rome and then put buildings down is the main thing. And there's 3 types of buildings. There's residential buildings, which give you population. There's commercial buildings, which get you income when you take income. And then there's civic buildings, which generally get you points at the end of the game based on their proximity to other buildings. So maybe they want to be next to residential or they want to be next to commercial or something along those lines. But the turn structure is very simple. You can do one of 3 things. You can take income based on what you've already put out on the board. You can build a building or upgrade a building to a bigger one if you want to take something off the board and replace it with a larger building. Or you can buy a deed card. And what the deed cards are is the board is a grid. So it was, I forget, a 10 by 10 or something along that line grid. And the deed cards will have a location like B4, J6 or whatever it is. So you can buy a location on the board. Think Bunny Kingdom, how you draft those locations for that main board. Except here they're on a row of cards, and the longer the card sits out, they slide down and they get cheaper the longer they're out. So if you want to jump on something right away, you'll pay more for it. So effectively, you do one of 3 things. You get your income, you buy a deed card, so you now own a piece of property, or you build on the properties you own. So obviously trying to get adjacency of the deeds you get so that you can build different shaped buildings down. So a couple interesting things about this then. One was the scoring mechanism for the residential buildings, something I've never seen before. So the residential buildings will give you like 1, 2, or 3 population, and you'll track population on a score. And at the end of each of the 3 rounds, you look at that score tracker, and whoever's in the lead gets their total population plus 4, 7, or 10, depending on the round. Second place, their points is however many first place has. Third place, their points are however many second place has. So you're always looking at the next person ahead of you. So you want to pass people, but you don't want to pass them too far, or you're giving them extra points. You're giving you and them extra points. So you have to kind of balance out as far as like how far you want to get ahead of people, especially if you're first, because you're going to get those bonus points. So
this sounds
that
like
was
gambling.
really interesting. A little bit, but also if you can run away, you can guarantee that lead for a long time. So I thought that was a really clever mechanism. I've not seen anything like that yet. And then we also played with the Monuments expansion, which added some public buildings that were out there, and they were things like the Colosseum and the Pantheon and things like that. And if you purchase those, you might get some extra scoring at the end of the game, or maybe a one-time influx of coin or something along those lines. But they were pretty easy to deal with, and a decent expansion for first play. Looking at it, the game was gorgeous. So Mitch had bought the version where the minis all came washed, which really just gave this extra level of just elegance to this game. So I mean, you're really watching the city go with buildings everywhere. It's with the architecture was just fabulous watching this on the table play out. And the tray that those come in are really, really cool because, for instance, if you place a commercial building that maybe gives you 3 money when you take income and it scores you 2 points at the end of a round, the space that left on your board showed you the 3 money and the 2 victory points. So when it came time to count things, you're not scrounging around the board trying to see if you see all your pieces out there and count accurately. You just look down at the empty spots on your playmat. So the the design on that was just absolutely fabulous. And then the minis were gorgeous. The components were all good quality. So from that perspective, it was great. I really enjoyed the game. It was intimidating when it came out. I mean, I like heavy games. I tend to play more medium weight, but I like heavy games. So I can do anything here. But we had a lighter gamer at the table with us as well, and she did fine with it. I mean, it's you have 3 things you can do on your turn. That's it, and they're really straightforward. The scoring wasn't really complex at all with the base stuff, and the game just flows. So I mean, people, you're trying to buy up the extra lots right around where you're at. You kind of know, do I need more money, or am I trying to get population points? And it drives what you want to put out. So there's not a lot going on with hard decisions, not a lot to drive AP. The game flows really smooth. Like this is a winner. This is a really good game all around.
So I guess one of the questions that I really had for you, and something I've heard mixed about, with the production value and everything being considered, do you think that the weight of the game and the gameplay itself is basically worthy of that production? Do you think that the production adds to it? Does it, is it excessive, or is it just right? What did you think about that?
That's an interesting question, because there is this, I don't know where we get it, but there is this thought of like, that's a light game, it shouldn't be expensive, Mm-hmm. And I've honestly not read reviews on it, so I've not seen it, but that is an interesting thought with that, because I think it's like 150 to 250 for this game, depending on what level you get and everything. So it is pricey. It was gorgeous on the table. I think while it's relatively straightforward and not complex, I think there's enough going on that I think I would come back to this game quite a bit if I had it and was gaming more. And then there's a lot of mini expansions, and I'm honestly not certain if that's part of the base game or part of an expansion. I'm not sure how it bundled together, but just flipping through the rulebook, there's a lot of extra things around, trading, and I forget now what they were, but it seemed like there were several like smaller expansions that you could kind of layer in. So I think there was a lot you could do to expand and contract it. The monuments expansion, there was probably 15 different monuments or 20 monuments, and we put 5 or 6 on the table. So you'll get some replayability with that. So yeah, it might be just a hair overblown if you're comparing price to the playability, but if you're one of those people that loves, like, if you're always upgrading your games, if you say every game I love, I have to spend the extra $60 on all the extra bits and all that, I'm sure anybody that feels that way would say this is totally worth it. I'm not that person. But I think for people that are, it probably is probably a pretty good buy.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Do you feel that maybe and I don't know, maybe this is like a little bit too speculative, but do you feel that maybe somebody who enjoys history, like would opt for something more like this? Like maybe that's the customer that would go all in, because one of the things we were talking about when our friend Ches was playing this at Gen Con, he's a huge history buff. And I kept looking at the minis. They didn't get the washed ones. And I was like, I would love it if somebody would commission this from me. Because I just feel like it'd be really fun to paint those buildings, try to get it to be historically accurate, like just do something cool like that. But that's an even further cost, right? So all I could think about was how this game seemed to fit his oeuvre really well, because he is a huge history buff. Maybe that's the person that the upgraded set's for, other than the gamer that just really likes to upgrade their beloved games. I don't know.
Yeah, and me not being a history person at all, the overall theme and like the decor of that architecture, right? I mean, the architecture itself gave you a ton of that flavor, and you really felt it more than if you were putting, just kind of a column-esque, wooden piece out on the table, So I think that really lent to the theme of the game they were going. I don't know how much any of this really connects to history, the monuments were real buildings. Half of them I've never heard of, honestly. But there were cool things like the Colosseum that I have, so from that perspective, it was neat. But if it was somebody that wanted the game because of history, this isn't, I don't know, it would depend on the purpose, the person, how much they want the game to really connect to the history versus just thematically be in the history. Because this didn't connect the history at all.
So I think you answered the question already, but you don't see the need yourself to own this game.
I was looking at the rule book to prepare to talk today and realized as I was searching for it, the game was for sale. And I thought, oh, this might be something cool to have. And then the price tag scared me off. Because I don't buy a lot in that $150 to $200 range. I don't get most of what I have. I don't get to the table. Even when I was gaming more, very few games, even my favorites, didn't get to the table enough for me to justify that expense. And again, I'm not the one that usually buys all the upgrades. I got, my cousin and I both got suckered into a cartographer's playmat for $10 at Origins. And we never buy playmats, either one of us. And it was one of those, we're buying the new maps, like, oh, we have playmats for $10. And we're like, sure. And then we both kind of like regret it. We're like, I'm never going to use this thing. I don't use playmats. So, I mean, that's the guy I am, right? So yeah, for me, that's overkill. But the game was great, but not $150 to $250 great for me. But I understand the people that buy it, for sure.
Yeah, and it's going to have to be one of those that I absolutely need to play before I can even consider making an investment in it. And it's such a hard point for me because when I look at that price point, I think Too Many Bones, I think Gloomhaven, I think Frosthaven. I think of those epic experience games that you know that you have all this gameplay in front of you. And Emerson is a brilliant designer. I love what he puts out. I've loved every single game that I've played of his. So I have no doubt that I would love this. I just don't know if I would love this particular game enough to drop $250 on.
I wonder if any of us know what it's like to be the kind of person that plays the same game like over and over again. If
right.
you have, like even when you have a favorite. Now, I mean, I'll go back to growing up. Like my family has like a whole 5 games that we play all the time, and we don't get tired of it. We love it, but if you can find one of these, but those are just card games, right? If you find one of these special games that you and your friends or family are going to just love till forever, sure. I don't know what that's like because all of our walls look like behind Craig on the video here, just a wall of games that I haven't even opened this yet,
Yeah, and that speaks a lot, I think. I look at my history with gaming, right? And we start out and, you've got your small group that, introduces you and they have a few games and you have a few games and you play. And what we found is we started, we had a few games, we played a lot. I mean, it was, this is a long time ago, it was, Carcassonne and Ticket to Ride and Small World and Dominion, it was those things. And then we all start buying all these extra games and your collection grows. And then you say, wow, it feels like we're just playing new games all the time. And maybe I want to spend my gaming budget on expanding the games I love. So you start, okay, I have every expansion for Small World. I have every expansion for Dominion. You start going down that. But then you still always want to try these other things, and your friends buy other things. And then you get to the point where you're like, well, why am I even buying expansions for the games I love? Because I only play them once a year. And it's kind of been this ebb and flow, over the years with that. And so now I have a hard time with, something looks awesome on Kickstarter, and I want to go buy it. And then I'm like, well, do I need the expansion content? If I don't buy it now, I may never get it. But I don't know if I'm ever going to use it once. It's just this really odd, reality check that you go through.
And does everybody have that problem now?
I'm literally, it's so funny you bring that up because I just got to that phase where I'm like, oh man, this really cool game came out. And then I start thinking about it and I'm like, I'm going to play this like once a year and I'm about to drop $100 on this thing. And like, it just doesn't add up. It's like,
yep.
I don't know. The one thing I will say based on on Craig, what you said, or at least the impression I got based on your description, is this seems to fill kind of a unique spot, though, which is a midweight game that has more lightweight mechanics. So it's like a little bit friendlier, a little bit like less bandwidth to get to the table, which I find kind of hard to really locate. You know, it's because we have a group. I have a group I play with every week. One of them really, really prefers more lightweight experiences, and that's fine. But, you know, I don't want to just sit there and play like 10 lightweight games in a week. I want to get one medium weight, maybe even a heavyweight out every now and then, because that's mostly what I own. I'm a little biased, but this seems to kind of fill that gap, like between light and medium. Is that kind of the impression you got?
Yeah, I'd be hard pressed to full on say this is medium weight, especially without all those mini expansions added in. So even with the monuments, I mean, this was, I think, daunting for a lightweight gamer to look at, but it was the mechanisms were very, very straightforward. Slight bit of, you know, push and pull a strategy with a little bit of that stuff with the population, but yeah, it was. I mean, it was maybe on the higher end of a lightweight game, but it wasn't. I'd be really hard pressed to say the base version of this is a medium weight game.
It's still a good opener for people, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To get them accustomed to something that looks heavy and isn't frightening.
It's a good game.
But
it is a good game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder.
It's just one of those things that's like, do I want to spend $250 on an opener?
And I wonder.
I need to know.
It strikes me as strange that the other midweight, like almost not quite midweight game that I would probably quantify is also a very intimidating, like it has a very intimidating board presence. And I would say that's Quacks. Because Quacks of Quedlinburg is kind of an easy game to play, but like when you first look at it, you're like, oh shit, like this is so much stuff.
I never thought of it that way, but yeah. I
wonder if maybe that's a feature.
Well,
yeah,
the price point's quite different.
Justin, what do you think of that? Because Quacks is like one of your favorite games.
Well, you know, when you mentioned the intimidation factor of it, I'm like, you know, I didn't think about that when we sat down to play it, and then I got into it, and I'm like, oh, I just love the heck out of this, you know. I could see that because you put all those cards out there and there's special rules on all this stuff, but they aren't hard. But yes, intimidating. I could believe that if you just bring someone in cold. But if you got a good instructor, which I often do, I wonder who that is. You know, like you don't feel that. So, that, you know, that goes a long ways. You know, yeah, I never thought about it until you brought it up. But yeah, I could see that looking scary. There's a lot of things out there on the board.
Craig is somebody who hates
Quacks.
Yeah, as someone who hates Quacks.
Oh, jeez. It's going to, like...
Yeah, he wrote you hate mail once, didn't he? About,
Yeah, this guy named Craig let me know that I was completely wrong, which wasn't the first time.
I have the full lineup of Quacks
I've
back
been
here,
wrong.
buried and everything.
Yeah, it's a beautiful game. Yeah, and that's a very interesting thought. That is a very interesting thought.
So this is an episode about like going way back and such, but do we want to get into like all of our other like, oh, I'm going to get everything for this game and then never play it again?
I'm gonna let you get into that in a minute.
That's a good prompt.
Okay, all right. It
is.
Well, we probably have like 8 stories of that each.
Yes, exactly. I'm gonna let you hold on to that for a minute because Jamie, I want you to talk about Dark Tower that you got to the table.
Oh yeah, speaking of high price point, huge board presence.
No kidding. Let's hear about this one that has been catching my eye too, and I've been resisting so far.
So the first thing I'll say is good on you for resisting, because I swear if I had the access and the money, I would not even question this. And I have someone in my play group who owns this game already. Like, it's one of those where could definitely get away with it if just someone near you that you play with frequently owns it. But okay, so the central crux of this is that it's from Restoration Games, which, as you may or may not know, they take old IPs and revitalize them, breathe new life into beloved games of the past. And my good friend owned the old one, or his family owned the old one, and he was like, "Oh well, like my old business partner had copies that he had kickstarted. He got extra copies of it, and my friend was like, yeah, no brainer. I'm gonna go for it, buy the whole kit and caboodle today." So he went and bought it, and we have played it quite a few times, I will say. Now, the biggest controversy, I'll just get out of the way right out the gate. It is app-based. So I know there's a lot of people who don't like app-based games. I myself have been pretty impressed with the implementation that I've seen of app-based games, so I still have quite a bit of faith in them. I haven't been burned like it seems a lot of people clearly have, because there's some people who really don't like app-based stuff.
I need to know like where the app like did so much damage to these people, because
right?
There's so many good board game apps that are out there. Alchemist, again, I think that came out in 2011, and that app is beautiful for it. So I know that there's a lot of good apps for it. Destiny's is another one that I thought was really well done.
Or
Mansions
even the app
of Madness, I thought was really good.
The app they use for Deal with the Devil, like it's all.
Yeah.
I would say that one is atypical of apps too, because it's very lightweight. It's not. To say that Deal with the Devil even is an app-based game is completely false. It's literally like the alternative would be having a fifth person at the table who just shuffled things around for you, and you would need a game master. The app really doesn't play a huge role in this, or in Deal with the Devil, that is. However, with Dark Tower, much like other games like Forgotten Waters and a few of the other ones, it truly runs the whole thing for you. Which is interesting, because it's one of those games where, it's not tracking things for you, but it is telling you the story and the outcomes based on the options you choose. But the coolest part about it, obviously, is the giant tower in the center of the table. That's the thing that everybody sees when they walk up to the table. That's the thing that makes all the noise, spins around, spits out skulls, and it's like the big draw of the whole thing, obviously. So basically, the crux of the game is that you are one of 4 adventurers, up to 4 players. I believe the expansion gives you the option for 5. We haven't played with the expansion yet, so I am not 100% sure about that. However, you choose a hero. You are given a unique quest at the beginning based on what the app, serves you, and you have an objective to complete. And they all vary from area control to, like sheer luck to, like strategy and planning and that sort of thing. But everything all kind of has a taste of each of those things to some degree. The one we played this past week had us move these non-playable characters using one of our actions in our action economy that is very unique and like very specific to your turn. It's kind of the thing that helps you generate the most resources and boons and things like that. You would have to use it to move these trees into position to create a ring of forests around the tower, at which point you find the location where you, turn in the quest, you activate it, and you're good. It took a long time. In fact, we were almost certain that the game was going to end before we finished it, because there's no set end time to your game. So there is a bit of a time crunch. Every turn around the table is 1 month in game, and so you have a certain amount of months before your game could theoretically end. There's an average, of course, that you can count on, but I think it also weighs it based on the difficulty of the quest, which makes it extra interesting. Again, to echo what you said before, Arwen, it's really well built. It's really, really well built. It takes a lot into account, and I think there is very little randomness that occurs in the app, which I think is probably a big part of why people don't like it. is because they don't get to know the internal workings of it, and anything random can be kind of, I won't say like abused from an app perspective, but I do think that it can be blamed, from a lot of people. So basically, whenever you enter into combat or you go into a dungeon, you claim advantages by earning gear or earning companions or any number of things that you gather on your quest. Those advantages then turn into opportunities to mitigate loss whenever you encounter some sort of conflict in the game. Those opportunities, it's worth noting, are not tracked by the app. So you really could just go in and cheat and say, like, I have this many opportunities, and so I'm going to mitigate all these issues. At a certain point, if you add enough of those advantages, you actually get something positive to happen. So it goes from something bad happening to like a neutral position, which is like nothing happens, or you add enough advantages or you have the opportunity to use enough that you then gain something from the risk of combat or the risk of dungeoning. So the whole thing is, it's another one of those that's like extremely straightforward, but it is extremely intimidating looking, which is kind of funny because, again, you have maybe 3 actions you can take on your turn. And it's really simple and it's fun because it's not one of those co-op games where you feel like everybody's telling you how to take your turn, which I think is a really tricky thing. I think a lot of co-op games suffer from that. And yeah, granted, you could be playing with somebody who's got a stronger personality and might push you around a little bit. But frankly, I think it's pretty well done. That's more down to the player than the game. So all that said, the best part is at the end of every turn, you drop a skull into the tower. Based on the internal workings of the tower, it has 3 rotating levels. The skull will end up behind one of 3 doors on each face of the tower, north, south, east, and west, based on the orientation of the board. And each person is kind of like the ruler of that kingdom. So if any of the doors are removed and there are runes that are facing your kingdom, there are penalties you have to pay every turn when you take actions. Alternatively, if you have to remove a door, which is a random event that occurs, sometimes a bunch of skulls pour out, and you have to put them on the cities throughout your kingdom. If it accumulates 4 skulls, the building is destroyed, and you are weaker for it because you no longer have that place of respite. The whole thing is really fun, and it can get really harrowing and like really exciting in a way that I think a lot of board games kind of miss the mark on. So, it's another one of those situations where, is it worth the $250? I think component-wise, definitely. Like even if you can't sit there and say that the material components of the game are worth $250, the addition of the app and how well structured it is, I do think it hits that mark. But again, it's a cost thing. It's so prohibitive for a lot of people. It's definitely one of those situations where if one of your friends has it, don't bother. Don't bother buying it. You're only going to play it a couple times a year. You're going to have a great time doing it. But it's just like Twilight Imperium. You just hope somebody else owns it.
I was like replay on it since you're bringing up that, though. I mean, is there just a billion quests in the thing?
Yep, and it seems like that's another benefit of the app experience, which is that, they can update it essentially. I mean, obviously the work that they put into it isn't free, but like they could just add more content to it without any buy-in, There are...
So the app drives the quests and everything.
Correct.
Like that.
Correct.
Okay, so the app is heavily involved in it, though. It's not in the background like in some games.
Very much so. I mean, what it really comes down to is turn to turn. Unless you do something that engages with the main quest or something that occurs, like if you engage in combat with a creature on the board, the app just kind of idles. As soon as you go into a dungeon or you enter into combat, that's when you use the app. And then as the turns rotate, a full turn around the table, sometimes events will occur. So it isn't necessarily all played on the app, but it does heavily feature the app. There's also premium upgrades with minis that are washed as well. Craig, I was glad you mentioned that about Foundations of Rome. I didn't realize that was a practice that was happening, but it really does add to it, I will say. But that's another one of those premium upgrades when it already is such a high price point. That said, the quality of the minis is very good. So it's a wonderful game. If you have an opportunity to play it, I highly recommend it. It's fun. It's like, I won't say it's a lightweight game, but it doesn't take a whole lot of bandwidth, which is nice. And it's just kind of fun to go on a quest with your buddies. So
I can feel that.
Yeah.
We should probably pop over to Restoration at some point during PAX and see if we can sit down for at least a demo of this, because I'd like to see it.
I would love to demo it with you. I would love to demo it with you.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see. It's one that, again, I've had my eye on. It's something that I've wanted but can't quite justify the cost with everything else that's going on. So, but you brought up the app aspect, and I think that is one thing that really is a big selling point for apps and games. You're seeing this especially, with Lucky Duck. They're really trying to push the technology as much as they can, and Destiny's is the one that really stands out to me on that, where you have not only just this concept that can be updated by the publisher, but also potentially by the community as well. So you have these community quests, in a game like Destiny's that are being created now, that are being pushed out, that you can go and you have this potential, unlimited supply of new gameplay that's available to you.
That's really exciting to me.
Yeah, it's a pretty big benefit to that. And Justin, we need to play Destinies at some point. We all need to play Destinies.
I need to play a lot of games.
Especially if there's a solo aspect to the game, that can be really, really compelling, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there is in that one too. I played a few rounds of that solo and enjoyed it.
How is the actual tower? So I know with Everdell, there's times we don't put the tree on the table, but I think that
intimidating.
The tower has to be in the middle, right? The way things fit out of it. Like, does it cause
it absolutely does. It really doesn't cause a lot of problems. The only thing I would say is a little bit... I won't even say cumbersome. I would say just like the only disadvantage I can see to the tower being there is, maybe not being able to see the other side of it without having to lean over. But like generally speaking, the events that occur between turns and as a result of like interacting with the game, the internal mechanisms of the tower will spin. And that will cause different runes to be revealed on your side. If you have any of those open doors that I mentioned earlier, it will create scenarios where a bunch of skulls will tumble out. So if you haven't been keeping your side, like clean, quote unquote, you have another resource that you have to manage, I guess, in that case, because you don't want the buildings to be destroyed on your side. It makes it harder, for everyone. So, like, movement becomes an issue, but you can do things to mitigate that. The amount of actions you can take, you can't really increase that, but you can increase the efficacy when you do take those actions. And it's kind of fun, because it's just sort of like, it's slowly, you're all building together. It's a really nicely contained quest-feeling game kind of thing. Quest-feeling, I guess, that you get from the game. In a nice little package. Not little, but a nice board game package that I think it's super nice because it doesn't focus on legacy, which I think is another thing that can be really intimidating about games like that. I love legacy games. I cannot find people who want to play legacy games with me. But this kind of game, it's not legacy. It's a different quest every time. And the characters are all so unique that you could play a different one every time. The expansion comes with 2 other characters. I mean, it really is a fantastic game. I just wish the price point was a little more accessible so more people could try it.
How many partially finished Legacy games do we have, Arwen? Two easily come to mind.
Two very easily come to mind. We're almost done with Gloomhaven, to be fair.
Oh, I wasn't even talking about that. I was considering that pretty much.
Oh.
Okay. we got.
Yeah. So apparently 3. No, there's
we got
there's
that Queensdale and
Rise of
and
Queensdale
Thunderstone Quest.
Yeah,
and I don't think I drug you into it too, but I got a copy of Risk Legacy sitting up there in my closet that I think I cracked open about 4 or 5 Christmases ago. So yeah.
Yeah, and I bought a copy of Clank Legacy that I was like, I'm done with Legacy games. I am done. I'm done buying them because, we got through, this is a nice segue into our next topic. We got through Pandemic Legacy Season 1.
And there's only one reason we got through that.
There's only one reason we got through that. And that was because we did it all in
at once.
24 hours.
Yeah.
We just did it one straight shot.
I think that's the only way we can physically play Legacy games.
Yeah.
I don't think we have another option. Just have to say, no, this is our life until it's over.
Yep. We're just gonna lock ourselves in this room.
And that sounds super awesome to me, by the way. I'm up for it again whenever we can make that happen.
I mean, we take a week off or something, and you know,
maybe when my kid's like 12 years old or something, and we can drag him into one.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it flows.
Yep.
So I do want to talk about some.
You haven't opened Clank
memories.
Legacy yet, though, right? Right?
No.
I'm just checking for my personal interests here.
No.
Okay.
Mm-mm. I'm trying to find the right play group and the right time to do this. So that's kind of, my whole thing behind this. But so I do want to get into maybe some more of those memories that we have, with the gaming that we've done with each other in the past. And I think that, I've said it many times. The biggest reason that I game is the time that I get to spend with people. Because that's what we really do this for. The games are a nice bonus, and they're a setting for us getting around the table and spending time and hanging out with each other.
They're an excuse. And they're a fun excuse.
They are kind of an excuse,
but they make it happen.
Exactly.
And so since we already opened up the Pandemic Legacy box in our 24-hour stream, and that's what I was getting to, is the way back you did some little charity streams and stuff, and I happily played along with those, so I could play a big old crunchy game like that for 24 hours. But I don't know if I can sum it up, but our objective was we're going to beat this in 24 hours, and I think we roughly did.
We did.
But every time we lost, we had all these punishments for ourselves. You had bought a bunch of horrible soda drinks from, who knows, one of those gimmick shops. And what else did we have? No, you had punishments for another game. That was the hot sauce. That was a different game. Another story. That's another story. Mm-hmm. The hot sauce one is another story. I was actually really excited about us getting together, like when we were going to film this before you got sick, because I've been sitting on another punishment for us for 5+ years now, and I brought back both some Marmite and Vegemite from New Zealand and Australia on my honeymoon many years ago, and so they're probably both horribly expired, but I don't think it matters.
I
don't think
there's so much salt in it. Yeah.
Oh, well, there's more than just salt. If only it was just a spoonful of salt. And here's the thing: we got to do a taste test, and we got to figure out if we can figure out which one's better.
Now, are you
back to back spoonfuls of Marmite Vegemite.
You got to do them on a sandwich. It's got to be a Vegemite sandwich.
Well, see, and I have friends from Australia that they taught me the right way to eat these things. I didn't think we were going to do it the right way. We could finish with the right way if we want second helpings. I thought, just a good old spoonful. You know,
do you have to listen to Men at Work the entire time you do it too?
we probably would
Yeah.
just because we're obnoxious.
I've always kind of
Obviously.
gotten the feeling I would enjoy those though. Does that make it worse? Like it's not as fun content if I don't hate it.
Well, so here's I don't know. Maybe you can be part of this. So here's the thing. Like, I like brewer's yeast. Like, I will eat spoonfuls of brewer's yeast. I think it's delicious. And most people are like, this tastes like feet. And Vegemite / Marmite. Oh, wow, is brutal. Like, it's rough. So I'm just warning. I like brewer's yeast. And oh, geez, holy cow. So yeah, in for a treat. We just got to figure out how to make this happen. This is also see. These are the things. What's that?
I've had Marmite, and it wasn't bad. It was.
Oh really? They must have went easy on you. They must have went easy on you.
I don't know. I was in UK.
That's why I'm saying spoonful.
For work a couple years ago, and the hotel we stayed at had a breakfast buffet, and I'm like, there's all this stuff on there. I have no idea what it is, and it's stuff I would certainly the stuff I did know. I'm like, this is not breakfast food, but when in Rome, and so everything that I didn't know what it was, I had to get because that's me. Like I just love trying.
I'm with you. I like being adventurous. Yes.
The Marmite was decent. Like it wasn't. I don't think something I would crave, but it wasn't bad.
Well, and that's why I'm going the punishing angle, and I think we're just going to get a big old lollipop of each of them and see how that goes. So.
Oh God. At least let me get my taste back before we, do this.
No, well, maybe a little round of COVID before you have the Marmite / Vegemite.
Just give me that COVID.
Just get me all numbed up.
Arwen doesn't have taste back yet, but we'll do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, this is horrible. Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
Oh no. Oh no, the flavors.
Oh boy. Yeah, those were good times. The 24-hour stream especially kind of stands out. And that was a stream that we did for Extra Life for Akron Children's Hospital. Back pre-transition, I want to say it was 2018 or 2019 timeframe.
It was that long.
Yeah, the old Good versus Evil days, which we won't talk about. They were fine. So that was cool. And then the hot sauce one that you brought up, I went to San Francisco with our friend Tweed, who's no longer with us, sadly. And we bought this 4 million Scoville hot sauce called Flashbang. And I said, if we raise enough money during this charity stream, I will, go and I will try this Flashbang hot sauce, and we will stream a game of Fuse while we go and I'm suffering from the effects of this.
That's right. That's how that went down. I couldn't remember what led to it. Yeah.
My God.
Yeah, so we're sitting there. You're on the timer. You ate a cracker with the hot sauce on it, and then we're trying to play this game.
Yeah,
and I think you made it through the game, and then you had to run to the bathroom and drink a gallon of milk.
Yeah, which led to other problems because you're not supposed to drink an entire gallon of milk.
No.
So it was... I have never felt that close to death, and I have, I drank a lot of alcohol in Cabo San Lucas one night. Like, we won't talk about that either. But let's just say I've had a couple of experiences that that one was close to. Maybe this is going to be it for me, and I should have put a will together. That was my experience with the hot sauce.
I was there, and I wasn't that worried about you. I was just letting you curl up in your bathroom there, doing your thing.
She'll survive. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Not worried.
Nobody cares.
The screams are just drama. Just ignore it.
No, and really, I kind of wanted to go back to the first time that we thought about actually doing a podcast. And that goes back to our days going to Origins. And Craig was part of that. Justin was part of that. That was before I knew Jamie. But this was kind of like, off the cuff. Like, we had such good conversations walking back from Origins, going to dinner and talking about games. What did we play? What did we see that we loved? What did we think about certain things? And we said, we should just record that sometime. We should just go and do it. And it never happened. And, we never did it. We just kind of kept to, ourselves, and we talk about games, in a more casual setting. And then just decided, one day in 2020 that was it, and let's do this. And I'm so glad that we did. I do miss those old Origins days of going and going to dinner, and then coming back, and especially when we were staying in the Residence Inn.
I was gonna say that's the best venue for playing games all night long.
It was in Columbus. It's just this old bank vault, or a bank that they converted into a hotel. And the breakfast in the morning, you went into the bank vault and went and got your stuff, and then had a lot of open area for you to sit, and tons of tables for you to play games. They had a little loft area that had a couple of bigger tables that you could sit around, and that's where we usually were. Sometimes we could get them to actually bring us drinks up there later at night, and that was cool.
And it seemed like nobody else ever found those tables, so we weren't competing for them, which was nice.
It was just us, and this giant, like, 4-story vaulted ceilings just must be echoing our loudness all over the place. But it was amazing.
People are having, a party, because there was a little party space down below too, and we were just being loud and obnoxious, and that. So,
and the bourbon bar there was very good.
Oh, that was fantastic. Had a little shuffleboard table. I remember playing games of the Mind in the back when that was the new hotness that year, and we were just constantly spamming that.
And we were so bad at it. Oh, we were so bad at
it. You're terrible. It was like level 4, and no.
Yeah.
That ain't gonna happen. Those were good times. I do look back fondly on those convention times, and playing with y'all in that. And I think
I was going to say, just for the record, the first time I ever played Quacks at Quedlinburg was at that big table in the Quiet Zone, and it was an enjoyable time. Just if there was any doubt.
Yeah. We're going to run this bit into the ground. I will never forget about it. That's why I brought it up, because I distinctly got a nasty gram. It wasn't nasty, but I distinctly got a note from Craig, the day after I released the podcast, and he's like, I actually really like Quacks, just so you know. And I'm like, okay, well, I better go on my podcast and apologize to this man who I've slighted. So
the person of integrity there, making the correction.
I will admit when I'm wrong, and I will say that I'm wrong, a lot of times. So I don't know why people still listen to this thing, but whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think that those times have kind of, unfortunately, we've had, kind of this whole pandemic thing come up, and, that kind of got us off of conventions for a while, and people had things come up in their personal lives that they had to attend to. And then, this whole podcast became a thing, and, Origins became more of a working convention than a actual, hey, we're going to go play games, where like those nights were the only time that we were playing games and not having meetings, which Jamie knows too well.
Oh my gosh.
We need to start
well.
our after Origin convention. I'm sorry, Jamie, go ahead.
No, you're totally fine. The thing is, it's funny because you guys have these wonderful stories, and I'm so new to the scene in general. I've been playing board games my whole life, but like as far as like proximity to the industry has been very, very new for me, like within the past year or two. But in a weird way, those stories kind of like I almost have those vibes to thank for my current career and position that I have, in my life the way it is, because the like gaming in general led me to meeting Arwen, which led me to doing the podcast with Arwen, which led me to owning a game store for a short period of time, and now basically painting commission full time, making content, and all other sorts of things that are due to be lucrative any day now, but nonetheless something I very much enjoy doing, which is kind of cool because like I never was one of those people that had like a calling or whatever, which I think is kind of a trite thing anyway, but nonetheless, all personal opinions aside, it has kind of led me here. And so maybe we don't necessarily share the same experiences, though I have gamed with both you and Craig separately. It's which has been wonderful. It's no doubt why Arwen has returned to you guys time and time again as gaming partners. But all that said, it's kind of interesting that the conversations and the fun that you guys mention have led to kind of, I won't say like a new generation because we all share a similar age, but like a new like, I guess person to welcome into the fold, or however you want to look at it. It's kind of cool because it's like you can look back at those memories and feel like maybe those days are behind you, or maybe they just look differently now. But the fact of the matter is there's always new people being added to it, whether it's new family or new friends. And there's just so much more to experience, I think. So it's like, it's really exciting to think about it that way, I think.
And one of those things, again, next time at Origins, I'm hoping that Justin can come down, spend some more time with us. I'm hoping we can get Craig to the table too, where we have those late night sessions that we've had at Gen Con, that we had at PAX, that we had at Origins, especially this year, where we just had those crazy 2-hour games of cartographers and that. I want to get these guys in on it. Justin, you were there, I think, so you might have to refresh my memory for me, but I probably was. The night the night that you came down for Origins, you were at the big table with us playing games and that, and things got goofy, and we were laughing. And
I just can't even remember what games we were playing because we were playing it like it was just a fun time with friends, and that's what it is. We've said that's what this is all about. I know. So I look forward to more of it in the future, even if it's different.
Is very distinct in our memories, Arwen.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about even just this year. I'm sorry. I forgot I even went down this year. See, this is how it goes for me with having a child. I'm trying to remember way back to the Residence Inn or whatever. No, yes, I remember sitting and playing with Jamie. I can't even remember what game we were playing. Oh, that was Cartographers.
When we played in the hotel, it was Trek. It was Trek 12. Which is easy to get mixed up with Cartographers because it's also a verb and right. So it's like... anyway, right. But the night we were playing in the actual convention was kind of the night we discovered Yum Yum Island, which has now gone into very, very deep like friend lore, I think, in our local group or in our personal group here. Boy, what a fever dream that game is. Anyway, that night with like Matt Hawker and with Justin, that whole weekend was just like a manic blur because it was like one of my first Origins that I'd gone to as somebody working, rather than as just an attendee. And it was still kind of cool because we got a taste of, the freedom that comes with being able to actually play board games at a convention. Imagine that. Yeah, and it's just like the excitement of getting to make more of those memories is like so palpable. So it's just cool to hear you guys talk about it with such fondness. Now, the one thing I will say I'm jealous of, and I really hope we get a chance to do, is very, very late night gaming sessions. Now, we've not had the opportunity to do that at conventions yet because we're usually so damn tired just from all the meetings and shit that we're doing. This, just to give some context, we went from Gen Con where Arwen and I attended, not Gen Con, Origins, where Arwen and I attended almost every meeting together, to Gen Con this year where we attended almost no meetings together because Arwen was running around taking meetings. I was taking other meetings. It was just ridiculous. But it's wonderful and it's fun, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. And like I said, in a small way of thinking of it, I do have you guys to thank for that.
I don't know if that all sounded like a good thing, but fine. Okay.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is.
Yeah. I wanted to say, it's I know I've had down in Arwen's basement a ton of fantastic times playing games, and I get to do a little bit of Americon now and then, but I can never stay for terribly long. But just getting out and on the con scene, and then being able to stay up late, it just adds that extra, takes it up a little extra notch, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know why, but we get a little extra wild, a little extra crazy, and have so much more fun.
All right. I don't know if Justin, you and Craig have had the opportunity to have Mikey's Late Night Slice at Origins. But
no.
That adds another level to it because you get done, they close the gaming hall, some woman is rolling her creaky
well, I remember the creaky wheel. And that was amazing.
And security's coming through and they're sweeping and they're kicking everybody out. It's 1:00 in the morning, and you go across the street and you are getting a whole ass pizza that you're going to bring back and share and laugh about stupid stuff, and recap the day. And those memories are ones that just stick out to me. And I'd like to introduce you both to that as well, because it's become kind of our routine that Jamie's introduced me to. So it's all big circle stuff.
And that's another thing about cons too, is beyond the gaming, every con gets its own meta of the things you do around it, and in some ways it's no different than the inside jokes that a group of friends share. It's the things that, we go to this con and we do this thing when we're there. And I've got so many layers. We've been to Origin so many times, and a lot with my cousins, and then you've been around several times, and some of my other friends, and there's so many of these things that have just piled up over the years that it's we go to Origins, we do this thing, and that's part of the fun with cons too. We get back to the gaming as people, and then going to cons is experiencing the games with the people, but then doing all the other cool stuff, right? The pizza, which I've not been a part of, but at Origins, it's the North Market and the brewery to go get your glass, and there's always other breweries down there, Wolfridge, and now Hoof Heart is added to this, and but it's the certain dining experiences, it's the things you do for breakfast, it's the lunch, and just all those other things that go around with that routine of going there, with the people to share, and it's in some ways turns into the holiday traditions you have with your family. It's the Origins traditions I have with my friends that I love.
Well, and since you bring that up, I mean, I always have this soft spot for, Con on the Cob, which is just chaos. But nothing beats Origins. Now, I haven't been to those other cons, so Jamie, Arwen, you're going to have to start telling me, what am I missing out on these others? And maybe you haven't been going off to establish that.
I'm telling you, Gen Con, again, is going to be kind of hit or miss. Do I have to hit it next year? I'm not entirely sure. PAX, I was looking forward to this year's PAX since last year because we had such a fantastic time. That is like my next Origins, and is definitely something to experience because you have like the level of crazy stuff that goes on in Columbus, but now you're in downtown Philadelphia and you have Chinatown that is right there. And we're like looking at restaurants for a couple months from now, and there's like conveyor belt hot pot and ramen and this dim sum place that Chip Theory took us to that is, oh my God, just some of the best dim sum that I've ever had in my entire life, and cheap. Oh my God.
I can't wait for PAX. I don't know. It's just like an entirely different experience because I wouldn't say the con experience itself is that much different than Origins. And I'm probably going to be like completely disagreed with on that. But like from my perspective, working it wasn't that much different. What it did feel like was that the temperature was down, not literally, even though it was, because everybody kind of already has their games out for the season. There's nothing super earth-shattering. Like, there's one or two darlings of the con that are, like, very, very over-advertised. But, like, for us, it's not like we're running around crazy trying to demo all the new hotness that, we've been hearing about for months. It's just sort of, like, finally getting around to games that we've been meaning to pick up.
That said, last year, I don't believe Essen actually took place in October. And I think this year is maybe the first Essen that they've been back in person. And this is going to be the first big con really on U.S. soil since Essen took place. So that might change a little bit, but I'm thinking, we kind of know the people that we hang out with. We've established those friend groups and everything. We've established those business relationships with certain publishers. So we kind of know going in, like, okay, we have to set up a meeting with this company, or we don't have to set up a meeting with this company because, we've played all their upcoming offerings. Like, we'll spend time with CGE, obviously, but we played Deal with the Devil at Gen Con. We got that preview. So, it's something that I feel like it might be a little bit more heated this year, but it's probably going to maintain that same feel. But I love PAX.
And now we're contending with things like, and this is just a little shameless personal plug, but I'm now teaching 3 mini painting classes at Gen Con, and I will be judging the mini painting contests, like on a panel of judges there. So it's like each time we do these things, we add a couple more things to the docket, and it's like we're gonna have to not do that at some point. But luckily, most of my classes are outside of the con hall time, which is very, very good because after having sacrificed one single day of Gen Con, trying to cram 4 days worth of con into 3 was not something I intend to do again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, any other thoughts, or I could talk to y'all all night, but it is going on an hour and 40 minutes of recording time here, and we still have to hear from Roberta after
I'm
this,
sure you can crop this down because we had lots of dead air in there, right?
Yeah. There's tons of time where we weren't even talking.
Well, we're way up past my bedtime. No, go ahead. Add more stuff. We love talking.
Absolutely.
Please do.
No, would you be mad if I say, hey, let's swing back to Justin's topic about what's about games that you've overbought the expansions on?
Oh,
can we just do like
let's close.
One quick hit around the horn?
You want one? Okay, I'll show you. Like, so way back, like even when I was still in college, like what was the bit like? This hobby was maybe just opening, or I wasn't aware of it. I don't know, but we started playing Carcassonne, and oh damn, I love that game. I love playing that game, and I think I got my brothers so tired of it, and all my college friends were so tired of it. But I had I bought. I won't say all the expansions, but all of them that I thought were good. And then I got all these, I was making custom pieces of myself that like to add extra flavor to the game. And then apparently they changed the artwork of it. So you got to get this like next generation stuff. So I like bought the big box of that stuff. And I don't think I've played that game in like 8 years. Like since I moved into this house, I put the big box under a couch and it hasn't moved. It's like, and I'm upset about it because I love the game, but like I got a billion other games, you know. It's and that's the thing is everybody have this problem, or is it just us that are totally sucked in? But I think that's kind of just the way the hobby. It's like it's the curse of the hobby now. It's like, oh, now there's all this great stuff out there, but the problem is we can't consume it now, you know, or not to the level that I want to. Like I want to consume this every day, right? And I can't anymore. So yeah. Now that you open up that,
yeah, and I go way back. You know, my example is Dominion. I mean, it was an early on favorite of mine. I still love the game. Honestly, it's probably been 4 or 5 years since I've played it. I mean, it's crazy, and it was one that would come out every game night early on, and I'd say I forget all the expansions, but I think probably the first 5 or 6 I had and was playing regularly, and then like the next one after that came out, and I got it and sleeved it but never played it. The next 2 I purchased, one got opened but never sleeved. The next one was purchased, never cracked the shrink, and I'm just like, well, this is like one of my favorite games, and I never play it anymore. And so yeah, I've went through recent purge of games here, and like those 3 boxes that still had all the cards in it, like went in the purge pile. So my initial set of expansions that I was playing with regularly years ago is still there. But yeah, I mean, I could give you half a dozen games where I've done this on.
You're a stronger man than I.
Hurts the most
to get rid of them. No, mine's still sitting there, and it's never going anywhere.
Well,
I probably got my.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I got my bag of like my handmade tiles for Carcassonne. It's gonna stay up there for. I mean, obviously, what am I gonna? Can't get rid of that, right? But you know,
I wasn't so invested to make handmade stuff, but I had like custom boxed everything, right? So I had everything like lined up real nice and custom inserts where I had taller cards that would go in between everything, so you could shuffle through alphabetical and find what you need, and you know, so everything that was already boxed and organized neatly, I've kept, and the stuff that never made it into that mode has hit the sell pile. Sad face tear.
Jamie, what about you?
Presuming we're excluding Warhammer, which far and away exceeds any, you know, like premium whatever I've bought for any game, to the point where I had a store full of it. I would say the game that I have the most stuff for versus the game that I have played the least that I have the most stuff for. I don't know that they're the same game. I would say right now it's Too Many Bones, which is unfortunate because I really do like that game, but I do have a lot for it. I'm not a trove owner, but I am somebody who has bought at least a couple of the character expansions.
Somebody else on the call is. Just saying.
Then there's also Cloudspire, which I own the expansions for, but not the core game. Which is an interesting situation I find myself in. I was given those to paint by our lovely friend, and I need to get my hands on the main game so that I can make use of the painted minis now. But I'm trying to think of what else might fall into that category. Probably Zombicide. I have a lot of Zombicide, including some like extra stuff, and I have not even played it. My friends have played it, and I haven't even played it, and it's my game. So, you know, if it has minis, I probably own it or have tried to own it and don't play it, and will never paint the minis because my minis get painted last. So, unfortunately, I have a lot of those games that fall into that category.
Well, let me regale everybody of the tale of Arwen and Thunderstone, because you know, I own a lot of Too Many Bones content. A lot of it's coming on the way. that last Kickstarter I really heavily invested in. Dominion is another one that, I've bought a ton of content for that. Cartographers is a little bit easier because it's just like a bunch of maps, so it's like whatever. But Thunderstone, I own the original. I first played that with Phil, who is another, former co-host of ours in some of our earlier episodes. Got me into that at Con the Cob. Way back 2016, 2017. I think it might have been 2016. And I needed the whole thing immediately. I was like, oh, this is an amazing game. This is like Dominion, but better. And I'm going through these dungeons and everything. And I was hooked on that game. And I eventually did get like every single expansion for that. And then Thunderstone Quest came out. And it was better. So I recently sold off my entire set of Thunderstone. And now I have the entire set of Thunderstone Quest, including some Kickstarter stuff that's on the way. The new expansions I keep getting. I think I've been through the first 4 scenarios of it that I keep playing over and over again because I keep introducing new people to the game. And we have a campaign that we started, and then like everything else, COVID hit.
Like pre-COVID, yeah.
So that was a thing. So I would say Thunderstone was definitely that game for me because it was just ridiculous and still is ridiculous.
You were almost far enough in that we should have known better at that point, but you don't learn.
It's like the Saw movies, right? Except Thunderstone might actually be good content. I just don't know. The Saw movies I would just keep seeing over and over again. And I knew after the second one, they were complete trash. And then I would just keep going to see them because I needed to know. I just kept needing to know. And it's like, nope, this sucks. Yep. Over and over again. So that's the thing, but no, and I want to thank all of you for being on with me and for agreeing to be up this late with me and discuss this.
Way past my bedtime.
Yeah, I know it, and me too. But yeah, legitimately, thank all of you. And I hope to do more episodes with all of you in the future, including an in-person episode like we were supposed to do, where we actually, talk about a couple of games that we've played together. I think we need to set that up during the winter, that we get this together, play a couple of games, and then talk about them.
I love it. Any excuse. Right. The winter Perfect. Of our discontent.
I make my own schedule. You just let me know when it's happening.
Perfect.
I love it. I have zero control over my schedule, as you know.
Yes. We'll try to fit it in. We'll make something happen. But again, thank you all so much. And after the break, we are going to have a conversation with Roberta Taylor. So stay tuned. On today's interview segment, we have an incredibly special guest with us that I have been excited to talk to for months now, and it's been a very, very difficult secret to keep from everyone. Roberta Taylor is the designer of the critically acclaimed and smash Kickstarter hit Creature Comforts, the upcoming Maple Valley, and a couple of other very interesting games that we'll be talking about here. Roberta, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to Cardboard Time.
Thanks. I'm really glad to be here.
So, for those who don't know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your body of work?
Sure. As you mentioned, my name is Roberta. I'm a Canadian game designer. I live in Edmonton, which is a lovely northerly city in Canada here. And I have 2 grown-up kids and a cat. the thing I love doing is making games. And as Arwen mentioned, Creature Comforts is the one most people are familiar with who know of my games. But I've also done a wide range of things. Octopus's Garden, which is going to be shipping really soon from that Kickstarter, as well as some more sort of serious games, including The Red Burnous, which is actually a war game, a feminist cooperative war game, and some projects for educational type clients as well, because I'm really fascinated in where games and like that serious questions can intersect. So
yeah, I think that's one thing. We did an interview with Taylor Schuss earlier this year about Stonewall Uprising, and that kind of got me intrigued with the story that games can tell and the educational experience that a game can kind of narrate, where you can have that experience, you can have that learning, but you can still have, a bit of fun while you're doing that.
For sure. Yeah, games are just such a great way to bring people into the story in a way that lets you build empathy, because when you take that role of that character, you think about it differently than as an abstract outside of yourself. So I think that's a reason why that's such a great vehicle for some of those stories.
Yeah, absolutely. Edmonton is one part of Canada that I haven't been to. I've been towards the West Coast. I've been to Vancouver. I've been to Toronto plenty of times. I used to live in Buffalo, so that was 2 hours away from me. It was really easy to get up there, and a gorgeous city. So Edmonton is one that I've always wanted to get to, but haven't had an opportunity to go to quite yet.
It's a great city. I've been here for I think 12 years now, and I came from small towns, and it's the smallest big city I think on earth. As far as I wasn't living here for more than a few years, and I just started running into people that I knew from other places, and was like, it's 1 million people, and I keep running into people I meet, which is it's good. It's better than it being the other way around, never seeing anyone.
Yeah, it sounds like a very cool city. It's one that I've always heard such incredible things about. So definitely looking forward to visiting at some point. Once I get my passport changed over, there's some issues with that, but we won't get into that right now. Creature Comforts wound up being such a incredibly big hit on Kickstarter. It reached over $500,000 in backing. Did you foresee that coming, or was that really a pretty big surprise?
So Creature Comforts was my first ever Kickstarter, and I had no idea what to expect. And I was terrified that it wouldn't fund, because I had nothing to measure it against. And it's not to say I didn't trust, the folks at KTBG as much as it's just really surreal. And you're like, how is this going to come together? And then, we started seeing people just getting so excited. And it was actually, it kind of spoiled me for any other company running a Kickstarter, because, one of the things that happened during that Kickstarter, and I'm sure happens in other ones too, but I had never observed, was this sort of informal temporary community that built up in the backers, and you'd pop in every so often, and people are like, they all get to know each other, and they're like, yeah, when this is over, I'm gonna miss talking to you every day. And I'm like, because the game was designed to be this really cozy experience, watching people build community around it already was just mind-blowing, and it really caught me off guard, but it was really neat to see.
That's pretty wild. The community almost reflected the atmosphere of the game.
Yeah, well, it was that first winter of the pandemic, and people were really nesting in a way that as a society we hadn't done together. It was an unusual time that way. And so, in that sense, it couldn't have been, it just serendipitously happened that way. But people were really receptive to the idea of being cozy.
Oh, absolutely. I know that I was like PJs all day, and I don't want to leave the house. I can't leave the house. So you might as well snuggle up and just enjoy it while you can, because there's a few times I almost wouldn't mind doing that again, maybe this winter. So when you designed it, did you have the theme in mind, or was it your mechanisms in mind first?
I really, really love just story. And so I always start with what story am I telling, and then from there, what experience I want players to have, and then we dig around for mechanics. In the case of Creature Comforts, I actually had designed a different game years ago, and I revisited it, and I was like, I'm gonna get this game out. I'm gonna rejig it, and specifically, I had been really fascinated to do some reading about the concept of cozy games in the video game world, and just like what makes something a cozy game, what player experience and what's going on. And I'm like, this should be in a board game. Like the concept's really, really broad. It's basically be nice to your players and let them be nice to each other, and be gentle. And that worked with the game that I had, and actually took it from being an okay game to being this game that I'm like so proud of, because it really worked well with that cozy vibe that I was really trying to get through.
Yeah, and that's actually one mechanism that I had like specifically in my notes I wanted to ask you about. So I'm glad that you brought it up. One of the big surprises for us getting that out to the table was just how friendly the gameplay was. It's something that you definitely don't see, like you said, and it's very often rewarding players for giving as well, which I think is amazing. And definitely a very cool mechanism. So you're working on your second KTBG game, which is Maple Valley, coming out to Kickstarter very soon. That continues the story from Creature Comforts. And how did that relationship come about?
I had met Josh and Helena at different game events in the past. And when I had this game, I had mentioned to Helena a long time ago, like, oh, I really want to show this to you. And so that's how I showed them Creature Comforts, and she fell immediately in love with it. And because I actually said, I would just love your opinion. And it's so funny, right? Like, I think we're too hard on ourselves. I said, I'd like you to look at this and tell me, should I finish the game or should I give up on it? And she's like, I want it. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, that's not even what I came here for. But, the whole team has been really great to work with. And so after Creature Comforts, I think it was probably the next summer, Helena said, like, we would love for you to do another game in that world, because people loved that setting. Like, they loved the creatures and they loved all that. And so that's when I started thinking about, what would that look like and whatever. And I ran in circles for ages, because I have to say, I absolutely find designing in isolation an absolute ridiculously difficult thing. So the pandemic has made that really hard. My playtesting group, we're still, weren't getting together in person. And so trying to do all this stuff online and stuff is just like this painful thing. But at the same time, it was such a fun project that, you're like, well, it's worth slogging through this, putting up a tabletop simulator and everything to get this done. So, yeah.
No, and I loved the blending of the very familiar elements with Creature Comforts. And one thing that my girlfriend and I both noticed right away was some of those familiar elements kind of making their way into Maple Valley. When we played the prototype at Gen Con, it was like, I can very quickly pick this up because I have that familiar element from Creature Comforts that I can go and relate to. Was that something that was a priority during your design process, or was it something that just kind of came about naturally?
I think it was deliberate, but maybe it wasn't like where we started. Once I had that core mechanic figured out of what players are going to be doing here, then when you start adding in that next layer of, like, in Creature Comforts, you've got all the different comforts, and then you've got the improvement cards, and once you start sort of filling that out and we're playing with it, and it's like, if the way that this is set up on the table and the way that these things behave looks similar to Creature Comforts, it also should not confuse players. Like, you want to be aware of the fact that lots of people are going to come in and they're going to make those assumptions anyways. And so it's actually interesting to me when I look at it now, having, done all the development and getting it where it is, at how much on the table they look similar, even though the core mechanics are completely different. I think that we are aware of it as we did it, but I wouldn't say I started with that in mind. It was sort of like, oh, look what happened.
And it does definitely work. It does lend to that, where it's like this is in the same universe, so I do feel familiar with it. It feels kind of, cozy and comfortable, just like the gameplay does. So very, very happy to see that from my standpoint. KTBG and a few other companies have recently started to focus on making games that are not only accessible for younger players, but also fun for adults as well. Maybe to play with those younger players and kind of get the family to the table. How important do you see this trend being? Is this something that you've kind of noticed and seen?
I mean, I'm super aware of it because it's an area that I've been interested in ever since I started designing. When I first started making games and playing games, there used to be this thing that would happen on Board Game Geek all the time, where some guy would get on there and like, I need a game to play with my girlfriend. She doesn't like my, war game thing that I play or whatever. And it thankfully, I think it's gotten a lot better, but it was this sort of sense of I want to trick her into playing a game with me because, girls don't play games or whatever. And the truth is that I think that there's a lot of different reasons you come to the table to play a game. And for a lot of us, it's really social. And I love thinking and planning my turn and all that. But really, I'm here to spend time with the people at the table with me. And so I was really interested in games that were a little bit lighter. So you could carry on a conversation while you played and not be, not like they're just fluff. But and also that the themes were more welcoming. Not everyone wants to be aggressive. And, I've known people who won't play games because, my dad used to get mad if he didn't win, or some of this stuff from growing up, or playing with players who are very much focused on that, the winning part of the experience, or the very, I'm going to, and everyone grew up with Risk or whatever, where you just end up with nothing left but Australia, and that's not a fun experience unless you're the kind of person who really likes that, right? So it's like I think there's so much space out there. There's so much potential, and what we're really seeing is companies recognizing that and going, hey, like there isn't a gamer stereotype. There's so many people who would love to play games if we're telling the right story and we're welcoming the right people around the table. And so games that people can include their family, their children, or, the grandmas over. Let's play a game that the kids can play and isn't so complex that grandma's head explodes, because that's another, families want to hang out together. And so I think that it is important, just like I said, because there's so many potential gamers and so many stories we could be telling.
One of the first games that really clued me into was the Bob Ross, I think it was Joy of Painting game. It was just so relaxed and so much of a I didn't leave the table mad that I didn't win, and nobody had a bad experience, even though only one of us could win. And I do, now that you bring that up, feel the same way about Creature Comforts. I've never left a game of that, even though I've lost plenty, feeling bad about it and, feeling upset that I played. It was just like, yeah, this was fun. I got to spend time with my friends and do some cool stuff on the board. And it's just really chill. And I do like that a lot.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people who don't play a lot of games are nervous about, like, what if I'm not good enough? What if whatever? And there's that sense of being able to say, you know what, this is really relaxed. It doesn't matter. Just have some fun doing what you do. And of course, I really love KTBG's approach of often including little notes for how you can simplify a game when you have younger players who want to join you at the table. And it's like, it seems like so obvious in hindsight, but it's such a brilliant thing to start doing, because I have so many people, they want their kids to join in with them, and they're like, but I don't want to play one more time of, tier off tier, whatever, because I'm bored of it.
Or, some of the newer gamers into the hobby, they can be attracted by the theme, but maybe you don't necessarily want to bring them in at full speed. You want to, kind of ease them in a little bit and take some of those little things out. I do really agree with that's such a genius idea. being able to maybe modularize some of those components a little bit. So shifting to another one of your games that you already mentioned, Octopus Garden. It's on boats right now, getting ready to fulfill, and you have been incredibly busy as of late. How many designs do you usually have in the hopper at once?
Well, being busy is awesome, but it's really new for me. When I sort of just designing as a hobby, I usually try to have 2 or 3 projects on the go, because if you get stuck in something, jumping into a different project that's at a different place is a really good way to feel like you're not stopped, but get your brain in a different space. But yeah, there's been a lot kind of all coming together at one time. I really wanted to make games more full-time, which I actually have started this summer. I left my day job and I'm just focusing on making games, which is amazing and I love it. But that was my goal. So for, several years, I've been saying yes to everything I can, which has brought me a really wide range of projects that have been really, really interesting and fulfilling, but also meant that the last few months before I left my job, I was so busy doing so many things. I'm okay, it's time to make the switch now, because I need to sleep. And so, I think that's usually suggests that there's any amount of history there. And I think it's been a 2 or 3. And I think at this point we're sitting at maybe half a dozen, but I don't know what'll settle down to being realistic in the long run. Time will tell.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with that. I know that's one thing a lot of people that we've had on the show have said. I have a few different things in the hopper just in case I need to move on to something and kind of reset my brain on this. And once you jump back into it, you might have been struggling with something for 6 months and then jump back into this, and all of a sudden you just read through everything and it's why didn't I do this?
Mm-hmm,
you've played something or you've designed something for something else that you can just kind of piggyback off of and say, oh yeah, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, and it's so hard for those of us who want to finish a project to acknowledge, is that sometimes you just need to let your brain work and leave it alone. And so, people who study creativity are you need to rest, go do something else. And sometimes having this other project gives us an excuse to do that without feeling I don't know. Yeah. I tend to feel I'm quitting, but no, I'm switching focus for a while.
Mm-hmm.
It'll come.
Absolutely. I'm just letting it simmer.
Exactly.
So I did a bit of research, and I stumbled across the fact that you did a game for the Alberta Health Services Tobacco Prevention Curriculum called Shadows of the Academy. What was that process like? How did you get involved? What was the design process like? I want to hear all about this because I find that fascinating.
So that was an amazing job. I really enjoyed it. I got involved because through game design, I have a friend in the city here who designed a few board games and back in the day worked for BioWare, and so knows half the city, and now works in the provincial government, and so knows the other half of the city. And someone approached him and he said, well, I know the person you want to talk to. And the Alberta Health Services is our provincial health ministry, had contracted this ad agency to do a campaign aimed at intermediate grades 4 through 7 students, because the research shows that when kids are really high risk of starting smoking in their early teens, and the real factor that contributing to that, whether or not a kid is susceptible, is what they call social capital, which just basically means their comfort with their peers and with themselves and kind of how they fit in. And so the ad agency was well, if social capital is important in this and we want to educate kids, why don't we educate them through a game that helps them learn and gain more social capital while because they all know that they shouldn't smoke. They can quote to you, oh, it gives you cancer. They know that stuff. That's not why they're starting. So they came to me, and they had a really specific, it's got to be purely card-based. It's got to play in this length of time. It's got to be cooperative. It's got to be up to 4 players. It has to be a reading level of sort of third grade, because some readers in grade 4 are really hesitant still. So there was this laundry list of what they needed. And actually, that was a project I found out. I love that. That's like my favorite place to work, is when I have all these nice fences, and within that fence, I can do anything I want. And so I put together, this sort of scaffolded this mechanics together for them that I told them, like, here's where you put your content, your educational content, and here's where your whatever. And every time I'd go into the office, they used to joke, because nobody would do any work. They'd all wander over to see what the game was doing, because that was like such a novel project for them. But they put like amazing graphic designers on the project, and the finished product looks amazing. And they actually won some ad awards in the ad industry for the project. But it was really, it was interesting in that sense of, you're looking at this, how is a teacher going to manage this? How we're going to make it so it's playable, if you have a few tables at once. And then they did a whole, because they're an ad agency, they do focus testing, which is what we would call play testing. And they actually went into a number of schools. And so they took me along on one of them, and I was really interested to see how they approach something that in the game design world I do, but they, with all these kids, and watching the kids play the game and get really excited about it. I mean, that's the one thing you got to say about like grade 5 kids, right? They're just awesome. They're just enthusiastic.
Oh yeah. No, and I could imagine that they would be some of your best playtesters, because they would probably think of really creative ways of just breaking everything. Where we've been conditioned to play a certain way, they can think outside that box still and say, well, what if I do this? If
exactly.
I go all this way over here, what happens?
Yeah, no, that's just it. It's always so much fun playing with someone who comes at it from a different perspective, just because of that. They're like, oh, I'm not playing it right. I'm like, no. Like, this is really important, because if I made it so you can do that, you're playing it right. It's all a learning curve for me, right? But definitely kids are great for that.
I've had some experiences where I think I was playing High Rise by Gil Hova at Origins once at his table, and I went all the way down the corruption track. So it was like, what can I do, to give me corruption? I'm just gonna, bleed this dry. And I wound up losing horribly. And he's like, thank you for doing this. It's exactly what I wanted you to see. You got punished for doing this, so this is good.
Yeah, I learned right off. Octopus Garden, we jokingly had a rule we called the Tom rule, because my buddy Tom, the first time I brought it out, within about 3 rounds was out of the game, because I'm like, well, why would you do that? That's going to kill you. And he's like, well, you didn't stop me. I'm like, so I had to design a mechanic to stop you doing that. And that's what I learned. Like, don't assume the player's going to be sensible. They're just going to, you create this space, and anything in there is fair game. So you've got to think really hard about what that space looks like.
The other thing that I've always found interesting is the fact that you can't pack the designer in the box. So that's why playtesting is so important, because the minute that it launches and the minute that it gets in somebody's hands, usually it's going to wind up being more playtesters than you've ever had at the table. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have to build that in and say, yep, I've accounted for hopefully everything that can happen. So let's shift gears a little bit here. And there's been kind of a history in the board game community, and I do think that it's getting better, of representation in the industry for women. It's one thing that is actively being worked on. We've seen more women in the industry. How have you seen it progress since you first entered?
Well, there's definitely more of us, which is wonderful. When I started, I didn't know of any female game designers, and I'm still one of only a few in Canada. There aren't a lot of us here. One of the things that I did find when I went looking, and this hasn't changed as much as I'd have liked, is that when you do find female game designers, they're almost always working in children's educational or mass market. And when you find their names on like BGG Top 100 or whatever, they're almost always as part of a team. And that's not that that's a bad thing to design as part of a team. It's just that there's clearly still not as many women as I'd love to see just making hobby games for the fun of it and getting those in front of players. And part of that, I think, has to do with the shift in what publishers are looking for. I think the types of games that I, for myself anyways, design are becoming more sought after. I think that there was a time when that was part of it, as well as I think just, like you said, that representation, like, you know, Elizabeth Hargrave's done a great job of keeping on putting out who are the female designers there and just being a voice for that. And there's a lot of other folks doing similar things. And one of the things I think we all are trying to do is look around us, see where there's other women who could use a hand up, whether that is an introduction to someone or mentoring or whatever, because that having someone who's walked that path a little bit ahead of you to help you out is just really, really valuable. When I started designing, I lucked out because there was a group of Canadian designers, they called themselves the Game Artisans of Canada, that met online, formed this informal group of just, when we learn stuff, we're going to share it and we're going to support each other. And it's like these baby designers all growing up together. And some amazing designers have come out of that group. Roxley Games, the founder of that, and a lot of their designers, as well as Jay Cormier and Sen Foong Lim, who both are phenomenal Canadian designers. We all started kind of learning together. And I kind of got swooped into that net really early on. But lots of people, especially lots of women, don't have that, the fortune of finding a group like that or whatever. So, you know, when you can see more women designers and you know, things like, you know, people tune into your podcast and hear this conversation and start looking around and whatever, I think there's a lot of desire to just make sure that folks get the help they need, but it's a long way to go as far as anywhere near. I think as many of us would love to be doing this, having that opportunity.
What other opportunities for improvement do you see? I mean, you know, you mentioned the mentoring, and I think that's a great one. That's one that really helped me out. Aaron from the Boards Alive podcast was my mentor as part of the Tabletop Mentorship Program, and that really helped me out so much. And I do feel like that's great. Do you see any other opportunities for improvement? What people can do, you know, actively to kind of promote inclusion in the industry?
One of the things that I run into a number of times is just people not realizing that games can be made by women specifically. I mean, and other marginalized identities. And so I was talking with a coworker and I was saying, oh, you should play Wingspan. You'd really like it. And she's like, oh, yeah, my brother-in-law something is. And anyways, and I said, yeah, well, I think Elizabeth did a wonderful job with this game or whatever. And she's like, the designer was a woman? And I said, yeah. And then a while later, she says, yeah, I was in this conversation with my brother-in-law and he argued with me. He's like, no. And it's like, it's right on the box. And I think like, this is why we put our names on the box. But it's just that extra, like, making it more something that we talk about more when we talk about games. You know, this game designed by so-and-so it makes people realize, oh, firstly, people make these, but also women make these, people like me make these. You know, I think that it's such a small thing, but at the same time, when I started listening for it, I realized how often it was happening, that people weren't even aware of the names of these designers, which I thought was interesting. One thing that I've noticed in Edmonton specifically that I think is really cool, we have a local board game store called Paymataway, which is Indigenous owned, and they also do consulting. They work a lot with Indigenous youth. They deliberately put themselves in an area of the city where, you know, it's maybe not as fancy, but there's lots of folks that they want to like be a community hub for. And I think that, you know, you don't have to just be a publisher or whatever to be looking around for ways to say, how can I help this? I think that, you know, that store has had a huge impact on its neighborhood and on, you know, the city as a whole, and especially being a way, like, you know, if they have someone who's interested in game design, they'll often reach out and say, hey, can I put so-and-so in touch with you? And I'm like, of course. Like, I don't know if I have to offer what they need, but I'm always glad that they're able to make that connection and make that introduction and feel comfortable doing that, because that's those places where people go and spend an evening with friends playing a game in the back room or whatever. Like, those are really, that's community again, right? And whenever we're looking at caring for people, of any sort, that's where we start.
And you never know what the even smallest, you might do something like that for a night, just set up a game night or just direct somebody to talk to somebody else and giving them half an hour of your time. What that can do for somebody, I think is really underestimated a lot of times. And I've definitely seen that multiple times, in the past couple of years that can have a huge impact on somebody's life. So other than what you're designing right now, what's on your table? What are you playing?
In my home, we love to play games to death, and we've almost worn out our copy of Terraforming Mars. That's how ridiculous we are. But what we have worn out that we've been playing the most this last level is actually Scout, which I'm not sure if you had a chance to play Scout. It is simple and genius, and there's an 11-year-old that lives in my home, and she is absolutely wicked at that game, and it's just the tiny little box, and we have a lot of fun with that. And so that's kind of been our latest, greatest favorite. But
that's one that everybody's been talking about that I think was at Gen Con. I didn't get around to the booth to pick it up, and everybody's like, oh, you didn't get Scout? And I'm like, no. So much other stuff going on. But at some point, I need to get that. I need to get it out to the table. It's been bothering me so much. Well, anything else that you want to talk about?
Oh, nothing jumps to mind. I mean, I can go on about ridiculous things all night, but I think we've covered lots of cool ground here.
We did cover a lot of ground. And how can people follow you on social media?
That's a great question. I'm going to quickly pull my Twitter up so I don't tell you the wrong Twitter name, because that's the best place for my board game stuff. And yes, I was correct. It's Infinite Roberta is my Twitter tag handle. I don't know what you call it.
What are the kids calling it these days?
And that's your best spot to find me online. I also have Instagram, but I don't really use it, so we'll stick to Twitter.
Well, Roberta, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. And the Kickstarter for Maple Valley goes live on November 15th. So everybody listening, make sure to check that one out. I've played it. My girlfriend's played it. We had a blast with it. And it's going to be one that you are definitely going to want to take a look at. So, Roberta, again, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, you're so welcome. This has been a lot of fun.
So I think that's going to do it for us today. And I wanted to record this closing separately, just in case I messed it up. I knew that we were going to go long on the front end of the show, so I didn't want to hold everybody up at the front end and do a whole big thing with them. But it's been such a pleasure to be able to do this show for the past 2 years for you. And it's been a lot of work. A lot of hours doing notes, research, interview prep, editing, the whole 9 yards. But it's worth it for two main reasons. And the first is to create the kind of content that I want to put out into the world. I want to be positive. I want to make sure that people know about the people who produce these games that we love. And I just really like that content. And I wanted to make it. So the second is the fact that I now know exactly how important it is to be a visible trans woman making this content. I started off not wanting to talk about it at all. I planned on never mentioning it on the show hardly at all. And you heard at the front end of the show exactly how this got started, where, I just thought, hey, I'll talk about games with my friends and that'll be it. And I think a lot of that changed after attending my first post-transition origins and seeing the effect that I had and hearing people talk about, hey, this is a really cool thing that you're doing and we're really glad that you're being visible. And when you see that and you hear it and you hear how important it is to other people, it definitely changes things up a little bit. So in summary, I feel like the show has grown into something of its own. So
I can't thank you all enough for climbing on board and sticking with me on this journey for the past 50 episodes. It's been incredible, to say the least. I never thought that it would get to this point. I just thought, I'd record some stuff and see what happened. And here I am 50 episodes later, and it's wild. I love the community that we've built. I love the friendships that I've made over this, and it means a lot to me. The bottom line is, without your listenership and feedback, it gets pretty overwhelming to produce new content every 2 weeks. It is something that I have to schedule. It is time that I take out of my life because I want to do it. And you keep me coming back. It keeps me going because I see that this means something, and I see that, this is meaningful content to you. And I'm just so happy that I'm able to produce it. So I don't know what the next 2 years is going to hold, but I can't wait to share the next 50 episodes and beyond with all of you. That's the most important thing, is to keep this train rolling, to keep those friendships coming, to meet everybody, and to really get to spend time with you all. It's been an amazing journey. And again, thank you so much for being on it with me. So, if you want to know anything more about Cardboard Time, you can go to cardboardtime.com. Our Instagram and Twitter is @cardboard_time. And any questions, suggestions, or ideas for discussion topics, you can email cardboardtime@gmail.com. And as always, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you around the table in 2 weeks for another episode of Cardboard Time.